All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women's Wellness Network. Lovely day. It's trying to be spring. I don't know. We're going to have a flood later. Downpours, that's part of spring. It's okay. Water the flowers, we grow. That's like ourselves, right? Water ourselves and we grow. Nurture ourselves and we blossom. We don't just grow, we blossom. So I have a lovely guest here today. Corinne, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Tammy. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. Like I'm saying, I'm glad winter's over, but we got to get through the muddy season, so that's okay. It's all good. All good. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us where you are in the world?
I'm Corinne Zuleger. I am in Appleton, Wisconsin. So just south, probably about 30 minutes of Green Bay. Everybody, pretty much when you reference Green Bay in Wisconsin, they kind of know where that is. So
Most definitely those Packers.
Mhm.
I'm not much of a, football girl, but I still know that. So
Oh, yeah, exactly.
there you go. Awesome. So we are here at the Women's Wellness Network, and Corinne, I know you know some things about wellness. You're a life coach and neuroencoding specialist, which is super cool. I've met a few of those. I've got some of those in my cohort, and I'm learning some things. I think it's super interesting. So why don't you share with us what it is you do in the world?
Oh, okay. So my primary objective, in my umbrella, if you see it in the background, is really to end child abuse. And how am I going to do that? Right? I mean, it's a pretty daunting task, and it's a conversation people really don't want to have. It makes people really squirm and get uncomfortable when I talk about it. But what my goal is really to educate women, educate moms, educate women behind having a fulfilled life. What does that look like, right? To be their authentic selves, to live a life of their creating, and really focusing on the physical health, the emotional health, the social and the spiritual components of us as a whole human being. Um, and then looking at, breaking any generational trauma cycles, preferably before we have children, but while we're raising children, especially so that we can um, stop that cycle and not pass it on. So I'm really, I have a whole host of tools in my toolbox besides the neuroencoding. So I'm also a brain trainer with Dr. Daniel Amen. I have a certification through an organization called Quantum Leap, which is, I use a technique called RAMP, which is a subconscious technique to help move past some of the subconscious blocks. That's very helpful. Maxwell leadership, just been a lifelong learner, so really learning and growing. And also have a certification, an advanced certification, anyways, in trauma practicing. So working with adverse childhood experiences in particular, and how those experiences affect us in our bodies.
Yeah, right. That's it's super important. And as you say, people get a little squeamish about it. And
Mhm.
in my opinion, in my understanding of, others, and when I've broached that question myself, um, it's usually because they've got it in their own background and have not dealt with it. And it's, something that's
Mhm.
shameful and makes them feel bad about themselves. And being, I'm a survivor of that, if you want to call it that. I don't like to call it that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not really it's something that I endured and worked through and have overcome and, you know, broke the generational curse. So this is super important. And yeah, thank you for doing the work that you're doing to begin with. That's major, major important. And yeah, like you said, starting with women before they have children, or is that something that you're able to do? Like, what do I want to say here? It usually seems people might have that understanding that that's happening after they have children instead of before they have children.
Mhm.
Are you
Yeah,
finding that?
I do find that, and especially with myself, right? Because it was like when you start to see the things mirrored back to you, then you're like, ooh, like what, where does that come from? I lost my dad and my brother both to substances. And so it was really a game changer for me, was to understand, like, why do people abuse substances, right? And it wasn't that I didn't have my own issue, because mine is sugar.
Mm,
Yeah, that's a whole conversation for another network, but that was what I was using to soothe me and comfort me, where they chose alcohol and drugs, right? So just a different, and it really boiled down to that emotional intelligence and understanding what's going on within my physical body. So to answer your question, when we're looking at, can it be done? We can, if we start to have the conversations, and we start to help our young people process their emotions and learn good outlets and good, positive ways to release emotion, right? Because so much has been taught about, like, holding things in, and we don't air our dirty laundry. And I'm not talking about going out there and telling everybody and their brother your deep dark secrets, because not everybody's privy to that information. What I am talking about is having, one or two people that you can confide in, that can help you through, right? So releasing that too, right? If I need to cry, man, woman, doesn't matter, right? Release that, and then what can I do that is a good outlet, right? Can I go for a run? Can I go for a walk? Can I spend some time in nature? Can I get my feet in the grass and ground? Can I know, if we're in a distress place, we're probably not going to sit and meditate, but what can I do? Some breath work, what can I do? So the younger we start to teach those things, the more open we are about conversation around, these are the things that happen within our family. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be like that, right? When we have a better understanding of it. I thought my path was going to be, I'm going to end up either a substance abuser, or I'm going to end up with a mental health issue. Those were the two sides of my fence, and I was just like, no, no. A no for me, it's a no for me, right? So that is where I look at, like, this is how it's possible, right? Through that earlier education, as we continue to educate our young people and educate our young women about their physical bodies, about their spiritual wellness, about their social wellness, right? That we can break that cycle sooner and sooner, instead of waiting until we're a mom and it's being reflected back at us. And it's not that it's all a journey, right? Our souls are on a journey, and we get to live through the things. But we're looking at, by decreasing child abuse, we're looking at, cutting back substantially on substance abuse, incarceration, mental health, suicide type issues. There's a whole host of things that the numbers would be reduced dramatically if child abuse would stop, or be much less in and of itself. So, the question really becomes, why would somebody do that? And it really is stemming from how they feel about themselves, and then it's projected outward onto somebody else. So I do think it's possible. I have hope. I have hope. Faith maybe is a better word instead of hope. Faith. I have
yeah.
faith that it's possible, and feel really called to be on that path of, this is the mission. And anytime I tried to articulate it another way, when I drop into my soul and I listen, it's like, no, this is it. And people try to steer me this way or this way, and I'm like, no, that's just not what it's saying to me. So yeah.
Right. Well, you got to listen to that. That's the thing. That's, that the calling. That's the thing. If you ignore it, you just keep getting called until you answer. And
I
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just was gonna say, I think so. I believe what you're saying. Yeah, if you don't listen, it's just gonna keep coming back at you and
Yeah.
look like unfulfillment, right? I mean, it's that this is inside of me, and there's this longing, and there's this need, and um, when we're feeling unfulfilled, like we're reaching for different things, I'm reaching for sugar, somebody else is reaching for a drink, somebody else is reaching for drugs, somebody else is scrolling social media, somebody else is out shopping and, exceeding spending, limits, or gambling. And, we're doing these things and because we're not living in our full purpose as we were created. We're looking at, wearing a mask of like somebody else says, I need to be doing this. I need to behave this way and live this way. And if it doesn't resonate with you deep in your soul level, your body lets you know.
Ugh,
It
yeah.
tells you what's up. It's like, this is a no for me. Right? It starts to come out, right? That dis-ease in our body starts to manifest itself, right? The thought processes, they become the emotions, and eventually, as we live those emotions and they become the feelings, they become things within our body. And
Absolutely. Yeah. Manifest as illness and disease, and even just I know from my own experience, not living in my body, not, disassociating, sort of just being ahead because the rest of it was unsafe. So learning how to get back in there and feel like it's okay, and working through those, some of those emotions are so heavy and so they reoccur so easily when we're triggered, and like shame and guilt, and yeah, we can't carry that with us. It ends up, you know taking us from the outside, from the inside out.
Sure. And I like to say to people, we got to pop the hood, right? I use a lot of car analogies. My dad used to fix everything. So it's like, but we got to pop the hood and get curious. Like if you are triggered, why does this bother me, right? Instead of just sweeping it under the rug. And there was a lot of generations of sweeping under the rug, right? If we just pretend like we don't see it, and we don't want to tarnish the family name. We don't want to leave a blemish. We're never going to ever tell anybody that that baby was conceived out of wedlock or born out of wedlock, or, that so-and-so had premarital sex, or, heaven forbid we talk about these things, even though they've been happening since the dawn of man. But we're just going to all pretend like it doesn't happen, or, so-and-so didn't, wasn't abused sexually, or but that just causes harm. And I'm not saying we got to swim in that story, but we do get to handle that story and move on. Or, like, if you did do something when you were younger as a woman, and, maybe, you had an encounter with a stranger and whatever, and to carry that in your little backpack of crap around with you for your whole life. It's like, oh, I did this thing. And so it's like the scarlet letter, I got to wear this because I did this thing when I was 15 or 16 or 17 or whatever it was. And, I'm at 55 years old, almost 56. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm beating myself up for stuff that's 40 years old. Why? For whose benefit?
Right.
Right. I get to heal that and then move past it. And it's been a beautiful journey, a beautiful process to release that. Because not only does it release the insides junk, right? By releasing all of that out, you get to release the extra weight, which can actually be extra weight as in pounds, right?
Right.
There's so many components to go into the secrets that we keep, especially as women, and not just women, but men keep secrets too.
For sure.
Um, they keep things that they feel shame and guilt around. I see it, and I did see it. I saw it with my dad and my brother, right? So
Right.
instead of processing the emotions, instead of learning healthy outlets, they abuse themselves. And so one of the big components of what I do with people is forgiveness. We do work around forgiveness and that release, right? Because what happens is, we have resentment, right? So I resent, whether I resent myself or I resent someone else, and then that creates a resistance. That means I'm withholding love from myself, or I'm withholding my talents from the world. There's a resistance in there. And then ultimately it turns into revenge. And revenge can look like, I want you to suffer for the way you made me suffer, or it can be turned inward. And with women, it typically is turned inward. We self-reject, and then the ultimate form of self-rejection is our body rejecting itself. And that's, revenge at its finest, if you
Ugh,
will. And I've seen it in so many women, including myself.
right.
Yet that was a pop of the hood and taking out all the parts and looking at the filters and what's really going on here. And then, like I said, you can move through that and heal and use all the different, there's, tools and techniques behind that. But once it's revealed, right? Once it's brought to light, it gets to be healed, right? It can be healed. The possibility is there. But if I continue to just stuff it down, pretend it doesn't exist, I'm just going to ignore it and it's going to go away.
It
No,
doesn't.
it
No,
doesn't.
it
Mhm.
doesn't. And it's interesting you mentioned the scarlet letter because obviously my name is Scarlet. And that is one of the things I used to actually feel if I heard that or saw that, I would be like, oh my God, that's me. I would just feel horrified, taking it all in on myself because I wasn't letting out the trauma. I wasn't, engaging in the healing part. I was just still piling on all the junk.
Yeah.
So, and you said you're a trauma informed healer, or I want to call you a healer because that's what it is ultimately. To have that though, and you can recognize it in others, and you can understand it so much more in other people. And I think this is where people like you really come into play in today's world right now, in this world, because women are starting to wake up. Women are starting to realize, oh, this is how I'm going to get better. This is how I'm going to not get breast cancer. This is how I'm going to fix my blood pressure. This is how I'm going to heal myself by letting it all out. But you need to have somebody to help you facilitate.
Absolutely. I believe that having a coach, having a mentor, having someone being like a healing strategist is what I call myself, is essential in that we get to help see the blind spots, right? We know what we see, but we don't necessarily see the whole picture. And that's where having somebody walk that journey with you is so beneficial. Um, I really have been gifted, if you will, a, a fabulous ability to discern.
Mm,
I can see both sides of things. I can look at things and think, from the human component of this, um, can I just see the human behind it?
right.
Can I be with that human? Can I recognize that, in our true essence, in our soul essence, we are all good,
Mhm.
right? We are just all good. And then things happen and they get piled on and they get piled on. And then without having healthy outlets, without having healthy ways taught to you to cope, then we start to see the other side of it. So I'd like to really look at, like what's the human component to this and what do they really need, and to heal themselves. And it's more than a book. As you can see, I love books and I have lots of books and I read all the time and I drive my family nuts because everything I read is not for fun. That's not fun. But then I had somebody who was discerning say to me, do you like to learn what you're learning about? And I said, I do. She's like, then you're reading for fun. And I'm like, thank you. See, I
Right.
just needed somebody to, see me from the other side. And, but you can read a book, but are you going to apply the things that are in the book? Right. Um, so when I'm, again, like I go back to, working on forgiveness, working on self-love, but I like to tackle the three big fears: the fear of being unworthy,
Mhm.
the fear of being alone, and the fear of not being safe.
Uh,
those are like the three giant fears in the room typically. And when we work on that, especially the worth component as a female, um, if you're a female and you had something and you believe now you're tainted, right? So something happened and you did something when you were younger, and now you can believe that, I'm unworthy of love because XYZ, whatever, or I'm going to be alone because, or I'm not safe because, right? And we can live a lot in that because, and neuroencoding tools have been extremely beneficial in that area to be able to say, you know what, we're gonna get to this pretty quick, and we're gonna start to create a whole new you. And it's so possible, and it's so lovely. And I am grateful every single day that I said yes to me.
Mhm.
I said to a life coach I met, and she started talking about what she did. And I was like so curious, and I asked her more questions. Then I went home and I looked at her website, and then it was like, oh, I think I need this. And then I called her and I'm like, I think I need what you do. And then I started working with her. And that was probably about 10 years ago. And I was like, I don't even recognize who she was, that woman back then
Right.
who needed that so much. But I think about how I said yes to that, or how when I had a breakdown and I sat on the bathroom floor while my husband was in the shower, and he's like, I can't help you.
Oh,
And I'm sobbing, and I'm like sitting on the floor, and I'm like, I'm just going to kill myself. I am no good to anyone. At that point I was just in this very depressed state, unfulfilled is what I know now as a
right.
hindsight. But just thinking, what am I going to do? And then that little voice, I listened to it, that little voice in the inside that said, pick up the phone. And I called a friend who was like, she knew what to do. And they, got me to the doctor, and we, got some medication, and we worked through that first phase, and, really listening to, what is my soul urging me to do, instead of listening to, what is that outer world telling me to do. So,
Yeah, it's like the proverbial dark night, right? Like we, I don't know if we actually do we have to go into it to the depths of our being before we come around and say, okay, I'm ready.
I don't think so. I think, so often people are like, well, I don't want to get into the dirt. And as a coach, I don't need to know all the backstory, right? I need to know, like, basic. What I want to know is where you want to go.
Mhm.
What is it you want for your life? Is it this? So you can tell me a little bit of what's not working, but we're not going to swim there long. But what do you want, right? And as people are talking about what they want, what gets in the way, the blocks that are there, they start to pop up. And then
Right.
you're like, then it's like whack-a-mole. Whoop, we'll get that one. Whoop, we'll get that one. Right? You just are like, okay, but, right. It's not about, I'm very much a root digger. I'm a root digger because I think if I can slap a band-aid on something,
Right.
but you and I both know, if you ever had a plantar's wart, you know what I'm talking about. So it's like, if you don't get anything out by the root, it's coming back,
Right.
So I very much am a root digger, but not to the point where it would make somebody uncomfortable. I'm going to dig out all mine, like, because I know, like, a dandelion root, if you don't get it all out, it's just going to keep coming up, but just in a different form, right? And so we see that, right, with healing. And people will say, well, I already worked through that first layer of the onion,
Yep.
and as you keep peeling back. And the beautiful part about life is it's your life. You get to live it how you want to live it. I just really want to see women be fulfilled. I want to see women, instead of living in grief, in struggle, in sadness, in frustration, and overwhelm, joy, fulfilled, just in love with life. having the peace, the inner peace, right?
Yeah.
Having the self-love. And I had this epiphanal moment. It's been coming to me and coming to me, but I'm sitting last night at a concert with four of my best girlfriends. We've been friends for 40 years.
Sweet.
First of all, I'm like, how is that even possible? But yes, we've been friends for 40 years. And so because I met them when I moved to a whole new school district. And as I'm sitting there, and the gentleman that was playing on stage was like, oh, I've been playing with this guitarist for 50 years. I'm thinking, wow, how cool. 50 years, that's crazy. And then I look at my friends and I'm like, "I've been friends for 40, how does that happen? Where did that go?" And I think about the times where it was like I was so sad and caught up in this dark, dark place. And I'm missing out on all the fun. I'm missing out on all the good, right? Because I can focus on the bad. I could, be like, oh, my childhood was in it. And I was like that. I played the victim really well. But life now on the other side of that and really looking at life from a different lens is it is amazing. I have not a perfect husband. He is not perfect, isn't human perfect. He's this amazing husband. Now I could get a quarter in my eye. It happens. We learned this. We learned this at a marriage retreat, and we'll ask each other if we got a quarter in our eye. But if you take out a quarter and you close your eye and you put that quarter in your eye, it blocks out everything. But if you hold it out here, it's not going to block out the sun. But as soon as you put it in your eye, yeah, do it. Close one eye. Now close the other eye. Close the other eye. You gotta close it, right? But just if you just put it in front of your eye and close the other one, right? So now one eye's closed and the quarter's blocking the other one. You can't say anything. It's blocking
No.
everything, right?
So-
But
And
hold it
it's
out.
worthless when it's that way. It's
Yeah.
not even
And
worth
if
a
you hold
quarter.
it out, right? If I put that quarter and I hold it out here, it's small. It's not going to block out the sun. It doesn't block out the light, right? But if I put it right in my eye and I close the other eye, I can't see anything. It's blocking it out. And the gentleman they had been married, I think, 50 years, and he's up there talking to us and he does that. And it was like, wow, that epiphanal moment of what are you focused on? What are you hanging on to so hard that it's wrecking the rest of your joy? You know? What,
Right?
let it go. Um, we were on something together and the gentleman had said, a closed mouth, a closed mind, a closed fist, right? So when I grasp so hard, or I don't speak my truth, or I'm not willing to see somebody else's perspective, right? How that limits us, but how the world opens up when you just let go and let
Totally.
it, right? Live and let live. The spirit of opulence. Thomas Troward talks about, we're just live and let live. I'm not going to be able to control you any more than I can control my neighbor, that I control anybody in another country. Here, right here.
Yeah.
This is what I got the say over, and I get to decide. And I don't want to live in a space of darkness. I want joy. I want love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. I want the fruits of the spirit. I know what they are. They're all the highest vibrations on the vibration scale. So depending on what your spirituality viewpoint is, we're all really looking for the same thing. Why fight about it? So, yeah.
That's true too. It's like you just reminded me of like low hanging fruit. That's, in my mind, that's ones that, the bugs get to, and it doesn't get that much sunlight and it rots first and all that stuff. And that's, we get there, we can have that. Is that really what we want though? We need to climb a little, get out of
Mhm.
that, get up to the top of the tree where it's bright and sunny and all the things are flourishing and beautiful and ripe and sweet.
It might be a little uncomfortable,
Right?
getting to the higher, and we might stretch a little bit. I love comfort. I mean, I think of like, I love soft pajamas and soft blankets. And I'll tell people I'm like Big Bird. I like to be in my like big nest. I'm like, my home is like a big nest, it's all about like squishy, comfort, healing space, warm teas and good coffee and whatever. Um, but I've learned that I have to get out of there, get stretched. It's going to be a little uncomfortable in the growth process when I am looking to do the new things, right? So if I continue to live as old me,
Mhm.
then my soul's calling doesn't get answered because old me, young me, little girl me, she was a big fraidy cat.
Yeah.
Scared of her own shadow, scared to go to sleep. She was just a big fraidy. And so, yeah, we don't need to live in those spaces. We get to heal and heal it all. And again, like I said, what we bring to the light can be healed. And again, it doesn't need to be this, um, it doesn't need to be a long drawn out process in that, but it does have to come to the surface so that it can be healed.
Yeah, put it into the light and then it shall be healed. I
Mhm.
think that is
Well,
so true.
it is. It's
Yeah.
I think it's anything too, like, the seed grows under the ground and it germinates and things grow. And when it is something that, um, if it's supposed to come out of the ground and get the light, it'll come, right? But sometimes things go awry and maybe the plant starts to go sideways or, something starts to pull it under the ground, right? And then you got to get in there and dig it out and help it. I guess that's what I consider you and I are, we're the helpers, right? We're going to help get that little seedling out of the ground and so that it can become this full blooming plant.
Right.
Um, use
Yeah.
an analogy.
Move it out of the manure that's
Yeah.
on the
It's, yeah.
top. It's fertilized us. It's taught us some lessons. But yeah,
Mhm,
now we can even
mhm.
the crying, right, is like watering that seed and getting that out and releasing that and letting it go.
Oh, for
Allows,
sure.
yeah.
I mean, they say, right, tears are, they cleanse the soul. And I believe that 100% to let them go. Um, in 2021, I lost my best friend and my mom both to cancer,
Oh,
and within months of each other, and it was brutal. And initially, I was like, I'm just going to travel, and I'm going to go and I'm going to do all these work things, and I'm going to be, like I'm just going to be so busy that I'm just not going to have time, And I've got this. I've got it all under control because I'm a life coach.
right. Yeah.
I'm not going to let this drag me under, right? And it didn't drag me under, but what I did is I didn't deal with the lurking, the stuff under the ground. And it was like, okay. So then, like a year after, then it finally was like, all righty, yeah, this does need to be, I need to talk to somebody about these things and have them help me process through the grief. Um, in that again, being able to humble myself enough to say, I need some help.
Mm.
I need somebody to help me as the helper, right? We're out there, we're giving, 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 and it's okay for me to be like, I need help too.
Yes, absolutely. Because we are still able to grow. We're still able to expand and process and become bigger and better and bolder. And
Mhm.
yeah, so yes, even healers need healers.
That's
And
right. Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
having awesome connections and a space. I'm so grateful for this Women's Wellness Network because it's providing like little little windows into people, into other healers, into people's into their process even. So it makes it less scary. Somebody's not going to say, oh, or they saw you on Facebook and they thought, oh, she knows what she's talking about. She looks interesting. She's got all the words written there. But now coming here and seeing you, hearing you, knowing your story a little bit, it opens up people, I think, on a whole different level where they feel comfortable and safe and that trust, having that trust is you got to have that trust to feel safe and to be to actually let those real things out.
I agree. This space that Amos created has been incredible. And I'm loving the Women's Wellness Network. It's really I too love to see what other people are doing, because it's
Yeah,
like, if you have someone that comes to you and you're like, just not the right fit, I can be like, oh, but I know someone who
right.
is, I
Exactly.
definitely know who
Yeah.
can do. Or at least I believe this person, would be a really good fit. I love having that as part of my toolbox and saying, I know this person, I know this person, give this person a try. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful. So if people would like to connect with you, how can they find you?
They can find me on my website, CorrineZuleger.com.
Simple.
The other way, Instagram, I'm on Instagram, it's Corinne_Zuleger. Those are probably the two best ways. On Facebook, I do have a business page, it's Corinne Zuleger Life Coaching on Facebook. But those are the best ways to find me. On my website, I have a quiz, and it's a GPS quiz. And what it does is it breaks down the key areas of where you may need to start, right? Where we might be a good place to start if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling frustrated, if you are feeling unfulfilled, let's hone in and let's see, what area of your life needs the most attention right away. And
Perfect.
that it just helps me know where to start. But obviously, we would always start wherever the client wants to start. But
Right. But that's wonderful. That probably makes it a little easier for somebody to, get started and open up. And even if they go there and they look at the questions and go, oh, okay, I'm not ready to answer that one yet. I'll come
yeah,
back.
yeah,
But yeah, it gives them a little bit of another tool. And that's awesome.
yeah.
That's amazing. I wrote that down for myself because I'm going to go and have to check that out. So anyways, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed speaking with you and finding out more about you. Like you said, we were on, I think we've been on a couple things together. And yeah, it's nice to get to, have you to myself.
Yes, I agree. This has been such a pleasure, Tammy. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. So Women's Wellness Network, if you'd like to connect with Corinne, we will put all the information in the comments. And yeah, feel free. If you're ready to open up, she's ready to host you. So
Okay.
thank you very
Thank
much, Corinne, and everybody, until next time, be
you.
well.
Bye-bye.